Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story will make you want to get a job at Walmart with a bunch of friends for the sole purpose of quitting together at the most inopportune time for the store. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Constantly talk down to me and berate me about my productivity? See what that gets you. I used to work overnights for a place that quite possibly rhymes with Hallmart. It was distinctly unpleasant. Working at night and sleeping during the day was bad enough, and I could write a small book on why working for this company sucked. You were given too much to do, then sent to another department to help, and then written up for not finishing your work. The managers were hopelessly out of touch with reality. Everything was tracked by an error-prone computer system. We lost at least 4 workers a month because they hated it. The pay was low. The worst part was the managers. One was okay. He was basically just a soulless husk in a suit. But the other one, who I'll call Angry Adam, was a jerk. He constantly talked down to workers while the night supervisor snickered by his side. I learned to dread working with him. Our night shift was so desperate for help and so horrifically understaffed that I was the only person assigned to the dairy department. I had no formal training at all. There were supposed to be a minimum of 3 working the department every single night. Occasionally, a new hire would be sent back to help, but they always quit within a week. And I can't say I blame them. Thus, it was impossible for me to finish any of my work, and Angry Adam always made snide remarks about how slow I was. It was demoralizing as hell, but it put food on the table, so I had to put up with it. What was odd, though, was that my coworkers assured me that I was doing a really good job. It was just impossible to run the department by yourself. To top it all off, I had a really hard time sleeping during the day. I basically just popped Benadryl in hopes of catching 3 or 4 hours of sleep after work. When the weekend finally came, I slept it all away, only to force myself to stay awake for work the following night. It took a big toll on my mental health and even some of my friendships. I just was never awake when my friends were. One night, Angry Adam was especially bad. He stopped me every half hour to tell me how crappy the dairy department looked and how I needed to pick up the pace. At one point, I was walking by out back on the way to break when I heard Angry Adam say, "I don't like seeing people go off on break when they haven't worked hard enough to deserve it, if you know what I mean." The night supervisor snickered. When I turned and looked, they were both sneering at me. My fists were clenched in rage when I started my break. I stayed half an hour late to finish my work. Angry Adam paged me to personnel before I could punch out and crawl into my bed. He said that there was a large load of dairy freight coming in the following night, 17 hours of freight, not to mention the 2 hours of overstock, and that I really needed to find a way to pick up the pace. His words, because there was no one else scheduled in that department for the next 2 days. He ended our little chat by insinuating that he would coach me for my poor speed if I didn't get the cooler cleared out by the end of my shift. Basically, he was saying, finish all this 17 hours of freight in your 8-hour shift, or else I'll make sure you're formally in trouble with the company. I assured him that I would pick up the pace and that the cooler would be cleared out by the end of my shift the following day. I never went back. That manager probably literally had to stock the dairy freight himself, which makes this even better. And our second story. Be abusive to employees? Say bye-bye to your job. My former boss was, simply put, an absolute effing a-hole. He was the type of person that had the ability to be so condescending while acting as if he was doing you a favor. His condescending attitude was sometimes downright abusive, and he seemed to have a particular problem with all of the female employees. He loves to scream at people regardless of how little their mistake was, if there even was one. He was a slave driver and expected everyone to sacrifice their own personal lives for their job. The thing that sparked this revenge was him telling me to miss my older sister's birthday to come into work on a day that I already booked off. No one liked him. Me and all my colleagues in the department, around 10 or so, couldn't stand him being here anymore, so we did the protocol. All of us piled together the evidence we had of him not sticking to booked-off holiday schedules, having inappropriate and sometimes abusive language, and we brought it all on one Google Doc. This was step 1. Step 2 was getting a cherry on top. We did this by getting him to do one of his screaming tantrums at one of us. We wanted this to be as damning as possible, and the youngest and smallest girl out of all of us volunteered to be the bait. She made an intentional beginner's mistake in her paperwork, something bound to get her roared at, and the idiot took the bait. You see, he likes to do his scoldings in front of all of us to prove a point, or rule by fear, as he called it. This gave us the perfect opportunity to film it from behind our desks and add it to the Google Doc. Now, you see, in our company, there's this really not well-made email system. You can send an email to an entire department, and I mean entire, as long as you have its name and manager's name. But the thing about this was the fact that all this information was completely and freely given to employees. This means that a person could send whatever email they want to the entire company, including the CEO. So one morning at 10 a.m., to ensure that as many people would be working as possible, we made a burner email and sent the Google Doc through an email to everyone in the company. It took a little while as there were many departments to get through, but we got there in the end. We gave the email the subject, boss's name, vital information, branch name, department name. Of course, our boss received the email as well, and you could basically hear the clutter from his office as people all over the company were contacting him to ask what the hell this was all about. HR did a light investigation into him and took heavy disciplinary action. As far as I know, he was fired. And a month after that, we never saw him again, and he was replaced by a new guy who was also an a-hole, but just less of one. His expressions during the whole ordeal helped me sleep at night. That's amazing teamwork. What is ridiculous is that his boss didn't see this coming and address it earlier. And our last story. How did you even get in?
Kind of a different one for you. It was certainly a new one for me. There's a bit of a build-up to the good part, so bear with me. I had just finished doing some holiday shopping, and after loading up my car, I got a hankering for something sweet and caffeinated from our local Green Mermaid coffee shop. The closest shop was clear on the other side of the massive parking lot outside the big box store, and I thought, F it. I could stand to get a little more cardio today, and walked across the lot from my car to get some coffee. Here's where it gets interesting. So it recently rained for the first time in months where I live, and I keep a little squeegee in my car wrapped in a dirty all-purpose rag I've used the past year to clean my wiper blades, polish my rims, and wipe the grime from my hands after fiddling under the hood. As I'm wiping the windows with the squeegee in one hand and holding the rag in the other, this minivan pulls up next to me and takes the stall beside mine. As I'm finishing, the driver hops out of her van and stops in front of me with some cash in her hand. She'll be playing the part of presumptuous prude, or PP. PP. When you're done here, could you do my windows as well? Me. Excuse me? PP. Crinkling her nose. Could you please wipe down my windows? Me. Sure, I guess. PP. You can take this now and I'll get to it when you're finished with this person's car. That'll be fine. I don't know how much money they gave you, but this should be enough. Me. PP. Shaking cash at me impatiently. Me. This is my car, ma'am. PP. Sure, whatever. And she said it with this condescending sneer that just got my hackles up. Thinking back on it, I should have just taken her cash, pocketed it, climbed into my car, and driven off. Instead, I don't think so. Keep your cash. PP. Oh, don't be so proud. Take it and be happy with what you get. I'm sure you need it. What's the big deal? Me. Excuse you, but I own this car. I bought it. PP. Don't be rude. Just take the cash and wipe down my car. That's how business transactions work. And then she waved the cash at me like it was a effing bell calling a servant. Me. Look, I'm just wiping down my car before I drive home. Save your cash for somebody who needs it. PP. As if. There's no way someone like you could afford anything but a bus ticket. You're going to take this, wipe my car, and then you can go back to your corner or wherever you park yourself to shake people down for change. That's when it hit me. I was wearing a ratty pair of tennis shoes I was planning on replacing next month with my next paycheck. I had on a pair of faded blue jeans and a red hoodie. And for the past week, I've been failing to keep my hair and beard neat and tidy. Studying for finals means I cut some things from my daily routine. The parking lot was covered in dirty water, and after walking through it, my shoes were covered in wet silt, and I had some dark speckles on my jeans from puddle splashes. I looked homeless, and using a squeegee on my car with a dirty rag in my hand helped to complete the look. So I looked at the squeegee and the rag in my hands, looked at this presumptuous B word now with a, well, I'm waiting look on her face, and I lost every last F I had to give. Me. Go shove that wad up your bleep, lady. I'm going home. I pulled my keys out of my pocket, opened my door, and drove off as PP stood there with a dumbfounded look on her face. That woman's probably now telling anyone who'll listen that the homeless guys that wash windshields really have their own cars and houses. Thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.